Very first meals we ended up doing was these steaks. My husband brought home these Tbone steaks. Him and I had these. The kids didn't want steaks this night. They wanted chicken nuggets. So I got chicken nuggets in the oven for them. You can see on the back of the stove there, I have a little bit of mac and cheese. That's what the kids did. Joe and I did these Tbone steaks with some fried eggs. So as soon as our steaks were done, I put in another lob of butter right into all that fat and all that extra seasonings that dripped off. And we're gonna cook our eggs right in that. These are our farm fresh eggs from chickens in the backyard. Super delicious, a really satisfying meal and a super filling meal. We don't always do steaks. You guys don't see me pick these up in my grocery hauls pretty much ever, but my husband on occasion will stop at a local small town grocery store on the way home from work and pick up these steaks. They have fresh steaks there. They're really, really good. So they're worth the price. It was an expensive meal. Both these steaks were $40. So it was an expensive meal. We don't do it all the time, but it was a really good meal. The next day we were using up the last of the garden green peppers that we had. It's pretty rare that I have peppers coming in this late in the season, but we've had a pretty warm fall, so they were still going strong up until very recently, and I wanted to use these up fresh. I didn't want to have to preserve these or put them in the freezer, and this was our first kind of cooler fall day, and I thought, you know what, let's do a big old pot of chili. So we cut up our garden fresh green peppers, some of our small onions, and a shallot. We got those in the Dutch oven with a little bit of our ground beef that we buy in bulk. And then the best part of this is not only using all of this fresh garden produce, but also being able to go on the canning shelf and pull off a ton of things that we've been canning all season long. So I grabbed 1 jar of chili base. We did this in a video together. I can try to link it down below. And then I grabbed a jar of just crushed tomatoes. I threw in about half a can of mixed chili beans, got all those mixed up, kind of pulled together, and it's delicious. This chili base is one of my favorite things that I've ever preserved. It basically is just all of your tomatoes with your chili spices in it. I use the Mrs. Wages chili kit, and it is so delicious. I don't have to use any of those like McCormick chili seasoning packets that are full of things that aren't really great for you. So this replaces a lot of that on my shelf, and it is just so much better. It's so much fresh tasting. To pair with that, I wanted to make cornbread, but I really didn't want to have to put it in the oven because it was going to take a lot longer. My timing this day was not very good when cooking dinner, so I decided to just pull out my waffle maker. We made some cornbread waffles and topped our chili with cheese, some sour cream. We added pasta into ours, and it was a really delicious meal. Heading into another meal, we had another cooler day, and I once again broke out our handy dandy Dutch oven. We are going to do the second half of that big old roast that I got from Aldi last month or the month before, and I'm going to cook it the exact same way I cooked it the first time because it was so delicious. Once again, we are using more garden produce, some fresh celery, those shallots, some of the onions, topping our half of this roast here with all of our spices. And I also had a bunch of green beans that had been in my fridge for a while, and I wanted to get those used up. So I threw those in the Dutch oven. This ended up being a meal where I was just throwing in a lot of fresh garden produce to use it up while it was still fresh, while it was still really good, and trying to save myself the time of having to preserve it. I threw in some water, some beef-based cubes, and put that in the oven at 400 for a couple of hours. I am going to make dinner rolls for the roast that we just put in the oven, but we are in the season now where we're gonna be eating a lot of dinner rolls, a lot of bread and things like that, and I don't always want to have to make them fresh. So what I'm going to do is actually double this recipe, make a double batch, and we'll make some for now. The other half will just go in the freezer, and I'm going to try to get stocked up on things because I just know that I'm going to come into a season, or not even a season, just like a day where I want to make a soup or something, and I just don't have the time or the energy to make rolls or bread or anything like that. So I just make my dough and then I put the dough in balls and par freeze them and then go back in the freezer, put them in Ziploc bags, and I can freeze them like that. That's how I really like to do all things, not just the vegetables that you guys have watched me preserve all summer long. So let's hurry up and whip this up. I have about 5 minutes before my big kids get off the bus. Baby's napping, so I am going to peacefully enjoy making my dinner rolls and trying to drink the rest of my coffee before the busyness of life continues. Lakin is my bread maker. Anytime I am in the kitchen making any sort of dough, she is all over it. She loves to help. So the second she got off the bus and saw that I was in the kitchen, she very immediately jumped in and wanted to help. Just threw her backpack down and came up in the kitchen and started helping. So she helped me finish off the dough and then helped me roll out all of these dough balls. I tend to just cut them into the appropriate sizes, and then we just talked about her day and did all that stuff, and she helped me roll out these dough balls. I put one tray in the freezer and the other tray we had for dinner. Heading into another meal, we went ahead and I browned up 2 pounds of ground beef. Once that was done, I pulled all my ground beef out, drained the grease out of it, and then put in a lob of butter, a little bit of flour to make my roux, because we're gonna make a beef gravy. I dumped in my beef base. We are boiling some of the potatoes we recently harvested, and we've got some green beans going. I saw that up on my deck we have these are just gutters that we put up on the deck, and we have a bunch of herbs in here. They all died, but our garlic chives came back and I wanted to use them. So I thought, let's put some of these garlic chives in some of our fresh potatoes and make a garlic chive mashed potato with some of this ground beef and some beef gravy, some green beans. It was just so delicious. It was not an appetizing looking meal at all, but it was so good. All of the kids had seconds of this. It was delicious, and our mashed potatoes turned this kind of pinky color because we had purple potatoes and white potatoes in here, but it was so delicious. You can see here what I mean. It might not look the most appetizing, but it was so good. It really hit the spot. The only thing that would have made this meal better is some fresh bread, but I just didn't have that this day, and we talked about that in the last clip. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. But that is all the meals that we had, heading into another week of just cooking from the garden. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope wherever you are, you're having a fantastic day, and I will catch you guys in another one.